guys, it's Stacy and welcome to the Retro Time Machine. So today I've got a question for you. Do you have any vintage metal hardware in your home that's kind of dull and dirty and tarnished, but you want it to shine like brand new? Well, I've got a couple tips and tricks that I learned along the way to share with you, and some of them might be easier than you think.
I love everything about my new kitchen, but one thing that stood out to me even when we were touring the home for the first time was something had to be done about the hardware in the kitchen. It is just so sad and dull and dirty and really doesn't do anything for the kitchen itself.
So the first step is we've got to remove the hardware.
It's pretty apparent that some of these handles were more well loved than others, but they are pretty filthy overall. I want to start off by trying some cleaning products that everyone might know when it comes to cleaning metal. So this is the original handle without any cleaning products done to it. You can see a lot of that age and patina. And here's one of the smaller, dirtier ones. Now this one I was able to clean up with the degreaser and it looks pretty good, but it's still got some of that dirty to it. And this one I couldn't figure out why. This is with the Brasso, but it had this weird spot on it. I learned later why. This one was also with a degreaser, but on the handle, and it didn't do much of anything. And this one I tried cooking in the crock pot and it seemed to get me close to where I wanted to be.
So I feel like I need to disclose this before we move on to the next step. And before any of you might do something you may regret, a lot of hardware is not necessarily what it looks like on the outside. So these look like they're brass, but they are getting a lot of green patina. Now, unless the object that you're working on is like 100 years old, it most likely is either plated copper or plated steel. Now, if they're as bad off as mine are, I'm willing to take the risk and just faux finish it back to looking like brass, because I know that that's what this is supposed to look like. You can kind of see on the edge there, but you can see there's a lot of green patina on this. So these are most likely copper underneath, and that's fine. All of the fixtures in my house are brass though. The light fixtures, the switch plates, everything. So I'm going to return these back to brass, even though I'm pretty sure they're gonna come up copper. So just keep that in mind. You can always faux finish it back to look like what it should have originally. But with this much age and just decay on this original finish, I do not think it will survive this next process, but I'm okay with that. I just wanted to let you guys know that is a possibility, and I'll walk you through what I do and then you can decide if this is right for you. So what I'm gonna do next is prep my hardware. So a lot of my knobs have this exterior like cup on the outside, but the inside is this little handle. And then that's how I know that it's supposed to be more of a bronze color originally, but a lot of them are like black. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a little bamboo skewer. You probably won't have to do this. And I'm just gonna see if I can shimmy this actual top out. Ooh, gross. That way I can cook these separately. And some of these do need some touch-up black spray paint, as well as the backers on the back of the handles, which actually protected that area from getting that discoloration. It sits on the top and around the back. And a lot of these are really rusted out and gross. So I'm going to cook all of this in a crock pot. So that is step 2 or step 1 after you remove your hardware, is we are going to put all of our hardware into a crock pot. You will not use this crock pot again for eating or cooking. it will be a crafting crock pot. You can find a junky one at Goodwill, or honestly, you can upgrade and buy yourself a new one at like Big Lots. They're 20 bucks and probably better than the one you have. Do not use your Instapot or anything crazy or fancy like that. We're gonna put all our hardware in here, and we're gonna put water over it and some Dawn dish soap, and we're gonna let it cook for 1 to 4 hours. You're gonna have to check and see, but you will be amazed and disgusted at how funky this stuff can get when it starts to peel off like the funk of 40,000 years. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish prepping my hardware and put everything in there, and we'll get cooking.
I decided to take this opportunity and clean behind the handles while I had the chance.
I accidentally found this one in my back pocket, but this is gonna give me a great opportunity to show you guys. Ooh, just what funkiness is happening in here. So you can see all the gross, grody layers are cooking off. But the stuff that's not really messed up or junky really isn't. So trust the process. In you go, my little friend. Good luck. And you too. Big difference. And look, it's already turning colors immediately. It's a pretty cool process. Wow, look at that. You can literally watch it happen. So now you're going to want to grab your handy dandy toothbrush, which you're going to need more of in the future. So here we can see that these are, ooh, a little steamy, cleaning up beautifully. So you have to brush this weird gunk off. I'll show you on this guy. Look, it just comes right off. Ta-da!
I decided to go ahead and take the hardware out and scrub each piece. Hopefully yours are not as dirty as mine, but you can see how gross that is.
So as you can see, they look pretty cool, but they're not where I want them to be. And underneath that patina is copper. So they are smooth, and I could move on to the next process right now, or I could see someone rocking these, you know, but this is not my aesthetic. So all of the black pieces are going to come out, and I'm going to put these back in and cook these a little bit more. You can see there was this very waxy coat on the bottom of everything, and so that's just making the water really nasty. Like you can't, oh, it's gone. Can't see hardly anything in there. So I'm going to do some clean water and pop the metal fixtures back in on low and let them cook overnight.
You can see what a huge difference these came out looking like in the morning. They actually look like metal and not gross rainbows. So they are definitely copper, but they are all shiny and clean, and I'm very happy with how these turned out. These are the two pieces I pulled out earlier in that first process, just so we could kind of see what was going on. And ta-da! It worked. These are gorgeous. If you wanted to keep yours copper, you would want to do a clear coat to make sure they don't tarnish up again. But I am definitely going to be moving on to another step.
Okay, so we have pulled our hardware out of the crock pot and let everything dry off. As you can see, it is far more shiny than it was whenever we put it in, but it is still not quite there yet. Some of these still have a lot of patina and age to them and you can see it doesn't really shine, while some of them really pulled up a nice coppery tone. Now, this is one of the ones that I pulled out early just to show you the difference. I don't know if you can see, but this one has more of a brass shine and this one is very coppery. So I just wanted to kind of have a control to show you what cooking can do. This one was probably one of the cleanest handles out there, so it didn't need much time. If your hardware is not super grubby and dirty, you could probably skip the crock pot step, but if it's got like 50 years with the fingerprints on it or paint, you're definitely gonna benefit from cooking it in that crock pot. Okay, for the next step, you're eventually gonna need a little toothbrush, but we'll save that for later. But you are gonna need a decent sized container depending on how much hardware you're going to be doing. And you are probably gonna need a ton of ketchup. So ketchup has a nice vinegar, content, and it's also like a solid, sort of, it's more solid of a liquid than just pure vinegar. So it allows you to cover the surface area of your hardware a lot easier. It kind of clings to the edges and sides, so you're not having to baby it. You just put it in and let it go. So we're gonna get a whole bunch. You're gonna wanna put a nice layer of ketchup down at the bottom of your container. That way you can put your hardware face down. Ugh. And it can really start to soak in the solution. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting these in the ketchup. And you want to kind of wiggle them in there. Make sure the sides are coated. And then we're also going to coat the back. Okay, so we got our first layer down. We're going to put down some more ketchup. And because on these like little button knobs, the only part that is showing to the outside is the top, we're just going to plop these down on that second layer and not really worry too much about covering the back of this because it's going to go inside that little cup. Okay, so I'm going to let these sit in the ketchup for about an hour. You could check them after 15 minutes or so, but I know that these have a long way to go. So we're just gonna play the waiting game, but while we're playing the waiting game, I'm gonna go ahead and refinish all the black pieces of my hardware and let those dry. So when these are ready, we can assemble later. So our black hardware has a little bit more to go before we can go outside and spray paint it. I am taking some 220 grit sandpaper and I'm just gonna pop off any of the loose paint and give myself a surface that the new spray paint will adhere to. This is gonna remove any of that stubborn rust that you weren't able to cook off and some of those paint flakes that you weren't able to scrub off with the toothbrush. So what I noticed on some of my test subject knobs is if I took a dish and put some baking soda in it, obviously with the acid you're going to get a reaction, and also with the grit you're going to get a little bit more scrubbing powder. So to speed things up, I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little dish of baking soda and scrub some ketchup.
I highly recommend doing this over the sink because you will get ketchup everywhere. So here you can see just how grimy and dirty this is, and with a little bit of ketchup and baking soda, it immediately starts to clean up beautifully. It just takes a little bit of time, not a lot of effort or force, but look at the difference. Wow, awesome. It's pretty gross and oddly satisfying. If you have sensitive skin, I would recommend wearing gloves, and you do want to rinse your pieces quickly after doing that ketchup polish to make sure they don't tarnish back up.
It's not for the faint of heart. I've got ketchup on everything, but these shine so beautifully now. So just be prepared for a ton of mess and for some really good results. Okay guys, so we have successfully ketchup polished our hardware, and now we have to make it look like the rest of the kitchen. So I'm going to highly recommend you use Rub and Buff and an antique gold if you're going for brass. They do make a brass color, but this one is highly more accessible, and it doesn't have the super shine like the traditional gold does. I would really recommend staying away from Art Deco metallic luster wax. It just makes everything really dull. The color is spot on, but it does not buff out to have a beautiful high shine. And we spend way too much time trying to get these nice and shiny again, just to dull them up with the wrong product. So we are going to go ahead with that Rub and Buff and bring these back.
For the Rub and Buff, you're just going to use a soft cloth and a tiny bit of the product and gently rub that all around and then polish it up to shine. If you want to do a second coat, wait for this one to dry and then use a brush and apply that, but just be careful, it can take the first layer off. I did do a second coat because I thought these still looked a little coppery, but talk about a transformation. You can really see what a big difference this bright and shiny hardware makes to the kitchen. It just adds so much more, and I absolutely love it. With the 2 coats, it fits the rest of the hardware and fixtures in the house perfectly, and I couldn't be happier with the outcome. It did take a little bit of time, but it was absolutely worth it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment below and let me know how it went for you.